Hey guys, it's Lisa back with another video for you for Lisa Wise Designs, and today we're going to start working back on our Boho Christmas mini album. This is part 2. If you want to see part 1 or what's in your kit for this series, please go back a couple of videos and you'll find the information. You can always look in the description box below and I'll have links there to my Etsy shop. And let's get started. This is where we left off. We have made the cover. Okay, we have our binding strips. That only took us an hour to put together. It seems like, oh, that shouldn't take very long. All right, so let's grab our cutting guide. So I wanted to kind of walk through the cutting guide a little bit today. You can kind of see the binding we've already done. What we're going to be working on next is those base pages. So go ahead and cut 12 pieces of those base pages. I'll wait. Okay, so then after that, we're going to make a couple of pockets and some photo flaps. So you'll see that there's 4 different sizes of photo flaps, A, B, C, and D. We're going to be using at least 2 of those on those sizes, like the A for the back cover and B for the back cover. And then you will make extras for however many more you want to put in your album. And then you'll see these other sizes, C and D. So these are for 4x6, a 4x6 vertical or horizontal, 3x4, and a 4x4. So I've got some examples here. Okay. So this is going to be A. It's going to be a vertical flap. You can put a 4x6 vertical photo front and back. And I love this size, B, because you can put a 4x6 photo either vertically, like so, or horizontal. So you don't have to know ahead of time which orientation is your photo. So this is a really fun size to have. That's B. And then here's C. This is a 3x4 where you can put those cut aparts or smaller photos. Usually I like to orientate mine like this to put those cut aparts on. And then we have size D, and this is if you want to cut down some of your photos to a 4x4. This is a fun size to have. So I'll have some of these examples in the book as we go along. But that's what the cutting guide is all about through this section. And then as we do the inside front cover, this little pop-up section, that will be covered here, and then we'll also do a couple more pockets there. All right, so let's get started. We are in the middle of page 11 where you cut the base pages, those 12 pieces, okay? You're gonna cut and score and then add tape on the top side or where the dent is. So once you've got those 12 cuts, you're gonna take your album, make sure, orientation right now is not such a big deal. Sometimes it is when putting in. This is not so much, but I always like to have the front of my album here on the left. What we're gonna do is we're gonna fold on that score line, all right, where you can see the tape here. Then what you're gonna do is where the fold is gonna be on the top. You're gonna butt it up against that first binding strip, okay? You're just gonna make sure you've got a good dry fit, which means we haven't taken off the adhesive backing off that strip tape. We're just gonna make sure that it works, everything is good, all right? And then we'll go ahead and take that off. Fold back here. I just like to line mine up, make sure the bottom and the top, and then you can just kind of push it up against it. And then I'm going to burnish a little bit. Once again, I need to use my tools, right? Yeah, just make sure you've got really good contact, and that's what it should look like. Okay. So for the second one, we're going to do the same technique on all of them. You're just going to fold on that score line. This time we're going to put the second one on the right side of that first binding strip. Again, we've got the fold at the top. We're going to push that up against it. We're just dry fitting it now just to make sure everything looks good. It's usually the first one you really want to make sure because they're all cut the same. Just want to make sure, you know, you didn't miscut or anything, and that this is the same height or a tiny bit shorter than that binding strip. You don't want it to be any longer. All right, I'm just gonna kind of take my time, make sure, lining it up, and then pushing it on. There we go, and that's what it should look like. Burnish it really well. Okay, and that's as simple as that. You're gonna have just a little, you know, tiny space in between the pages. And then once you get done, you're just gonna wanna work on the score lines to make it fold, you know, just like a book. It's as simple as that. So we're gonna do the same technique on all of the binding strips. So we got 5 left. So I'll see you after I get mine put on. Okay, I've got all of my base pages in. So should have all 12 in there. And so I'm just going through now and making sure everything folds correctly on the score lines. So you could just stop here and put photos in, which I think will be really cool. That's kind of the idea behind this, is you could put down 6x8 paper. You don't have to trim it, and then just put down your photos and your ephemera pieces to decorate, and you could just be done with that. Or you can add more photos with as many flip flaps as you would like to. So it's very personalizable, which I love. All right, so let's see where we are on our guide. We are down to the bottom of page 12. We're gonna make a swing pocket, which that's kind of fun, something different. So like I said, you don't have to make any of these extras. You could finish up here and just decorate, but we're gonna make a couple of extra things to put in here for more photos. So I'll show you on this finished one. So this is a swing pocket we're gonna make here. So you're gonna have 2 pieces here, and I like how this is not the same height so that you can kind of see the back of it. It makes it very easy to put something, an insert inside that pocket. Okay, and not only are we going to make pocket, we are going to make the mat. We'll make the mat template to put in the pocket. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that out. So let's see. I have not pre-cut and scored this, but to make this, I'm going to use some of my leftover pieces from making those base pages. So this should already be 4 1/4. Yep. 6 1/2. So that's going to be my back. Just going to put a B on there. The front, this should be 4 1/4 by 7. One of the reasons you can see some of the things that I've designed is all these cutoffs that you had from those 12 base pages. It gives you 4 1/4, and that's a perfect size for a 4x6 photo, right? So you'd have 1/4 inch and just cut it down by 6 1/4 if you were going to make just a photo mat. Kept thinking flat, but you know, whatever. Okay, so now I'm going to take the back on the 6 1/2 side. Hang on, looking. Where's my... I don't see my stylus. I move from room to room. On the weekends, a lot of times I do this out in the living room because the 5-year-old does not want to be by herself ever. And so I'll move a lot of my stuff out there to work on the kitchen table. So anyway, I'm going to use this bone folder with the tip on it. I don't use very often, but I love it. It just seems to wear down the tip too quickly. All right. And then On the 7-inch one, the one for the front, we're gonna score, yeah, this is gonna be like a pocket. So at a 1/2 inch, 6 1/2, flip around and a 1/2 inch. Basically, the only difference in a pocket and a swing pocket is this piece right here. We're going to use this to bind it to the page instead of just placing this straight down on the page. You can see I've got a little extra score line there, so I'm just gonna try to buff that out a little bit. Once I'm done and put pattern paper on it, I won't even notice it. Okay, so on the front side here, I'm gonna put my tape on all 3 sides between the score line and the cut edge. Let me know if you like adding things like this into your journal or your scrapbooks, or if you'd rather keep things very, very simple. If you like projects that are very quick, or if you like more things that are more detailed and has a really big bang for your buck when you're done. I guess I kind of like a mixture. Let's see. Tape on the right side, yeah, here. So on B, I'm going to do the same thing here. So now we're at the top of 13. Our back piece and our front piece, I've got a B and an F here, and we're going to cut at an angle at the top. I'm going to make an angled pocket that actually flips out. So I am in the middle of page 13 where it says take, or at the top of 13 it says take the back piece. Yeah. Okay. We're going to make a mark on the left hand side, 3 inches from the bottom. Should be about 1 1/4 inches from the top. Okay, I made a little pencil line here. Right. Then we're going to take this back piece and we're going to put it on top of the front piece. Okay, and we're going to put them flush to the right side here. So you can see there's a little flap here, flush to the right. If you want to at this point, you can take some of your low tack tape. Comes in all kinds of colors. I hear a lot of people talk about purple tape used to be the in thing. Then a lot of people went to like blue tape, and sometimes I just use plain old painter's tape. Just for the sake of this, I don't want it to move for sure and have to redo this, so I just got it taped down here. Like I said, here's the flap. It is lined up on the right side. Now we're going to cut from that 3-inch pencil line to the top right corner. Okay, it doesn't have to be exact. We're going to make a template in order to mat this, but this is kind of what it would look like. I'm going to start my blade in the center. I'm going to kind of push it down in there and then go back and forth. It kind of helps it from moving since it's not, flush at the top or the bottom where we're used to cutting. All right. So I've got these 2 little angles. I'm going to throw those away. Let's save this later. So this is now what you should have on your back and your front piece. Place tape. Oh yeah. We already did our tape, didn't we? So now I'm at the bottom of page 13. We're going to miter the corners. So on the front piece, we're going to miter the corners just like we do for any pocket. So right where the 2 score lines meet, kind of at an X or a T, I'm going to cut an angle where it just does hit that corner. Don't go over it or you will have negative edges. Okay. And so you're cutting, a pretty substantial piece. You're not cutting a sliver. And I'm going to clean up this top a little bit. Mine didn't cut all the way through. So you're just going to fold on those score lines toward the back. Just like so. And now you're going to see at the top right corner where this back piece is kind of sticking out a little bit, so just clean that up, just clean that off, make it flush like that with the top. There we go. All right, we're going to be on page 14, and we're going to remove the tape backing off of F and put it onto B, flush to the left side, because we want this to be sticking out. Okay. Let's go ahead and do that. Just going to make sure that I don't have any overlap here in my pocket. I'm only going to be making one of these for my project, but feel free to make as many of these as you would like. I left a lot of space in this album to add more flips and flaps and more pictures than what I'm putting into mine, so feel free to go crazy. A lot of times, like my last project, I did not do that. So I'll tell you when I'm making one if it's okay to do that. Hang on. Here we go, burnish, burnish. There we go. That's what it should look like. All right, so now we're going to be at the top of 15, and we're going to make a mat. So you should have a piece of white cardstock, or a couple of pieces actually, in your kit. So we're going to use one of those now, and we're going to go ahead and make a template before we put this in here so that you can mat. It'll be close to perfect. I'm not going to say it's going to be perfect. I lied. We are not on 15 yet. We are in the middle of 14. So we're going to cut a white piece of cardstock, 6, 4 1/2. I may use that later. Put that back over there. Okay, so now we have a 6 by 4 1/2. We're going to place this behind the swing pocket, flush to the left side and the bottom. So all the way over to the left and the bottom. This is kind of what you'll have. Okay, hold that down into place. Then I'm just going to draw on this line. Okay, so this is what you should have. So now we'll be at the top of 15. And we're going to cut. So no matter how you cut your angle, this should give you a near perfect mat for it. Now we have to do a little more to it. Let me shut my phone off. So we're going to have to cut 1/4 of an inch off the bottom and then 1/8 of an inch off each side. So if you cut 1/4 of an inch off one side like we normally do, because of the angles, it's not going to work. So just trust me, go over 1/4 of an inch on the bottom, and then you're going to do 1/8 off each side. So half of that 1/4 of an inch. So see, it'll be this very, very small trimming, and you can see pictures of that. I might have to turn it around and do it from the top on this one. You'll see pictures of what I cut off in the middle of 15. Okay, so I'm going to bring this back over. I'm going to flip it over to the back so you can see. Here is let me fold on the score line so you can see a little better. So it's a near perfect mat. So you can use this technique anytime you've got a weird angle or rounded corners or something that you're trying to mat. So on the front, because the pocket is shorter, this is on the directions on 15, you would cut another 1/2 inch off the bottom in order to mat this pocket. So that is what that would look like. Let's see, I'll bring this one over as an example. This is the first one I did. Here's my mat on that angle that I cut the first time. If you cut another 1/2 of an inch off the bottom, it's hard to see that pencil line, you get this black piece of paper, and then that then becomes your mat for this. So all you gotta use is cut this. I'm gonna write mat on here so I don't lose it. And then just know that if you cut another 1/2 inch off the bottom, then that's the mat for the pocket. And we'll get to that. Okay, so all of this, yeah, this is the first one I did. So here's that. All right, so now we're gonna cut some photo flap A's and B's. Trying to see how many of those that I need. A's and B's, and oh, it just kind of tells you, sorry, it's been a couple weeks since I made this. So the A's, B's, C's, and D's, it just gives you the measurements and how to make those photo mats that I showed you in the beginning. But we're going to start here in the middle of 16 on the inside front cover. All right. So I'm going to put this to the side. I will show you an example of what we're about to do. So we're going to make this little pop-up piece here. Here's my crude drawings and designs the first time I did it. So this is going to be your cover, and when you open your book up, it opens like this, and then you can put some elements here. You could put a photo back here, a photo here. It just kind of gives you some pop-up space to put. Okay. There, and then this is what it will look like as an example here. So when you open your book, this is what holds it down into place, this pocket, and then this little photo mat. And then when you open it, this is what it looks like this. Looks a lot different than the design. So much more nicer. The photo mat wants to come off. I used temporary adhesive to mark where photos should go, and it is really temporary. It keeps coming up. Okay, so let's get started on that. You're going to need a full sheet of your cardstock. So we are cutting piece E in your cutting guide. We're going to score on that 9-inch side at 4 1/4, 8 1/2. All right, so there's E, and so now F, you should be able to use some leftover pieces from that cut. Already a 2-inch. Okay. Here on F, I'm going to score on that 8-inch side, 1/2 inch, 3, 7 1/2. So then I'm going to add tape, just about out of tape on this roll. I find if I'm making a pretty big album like this, I can get a whole album out of one roll of 3/8 inch tape. Sometimes I won't use a whole roll, but I sure am on this one, making all those face pages. You also have to tell me if you prefer to use wet glue rather than tape, but I tell you, if I did that, whoa, I would have a mess everywhere. All right, so now we're going to be the top of page 17. Okay, this one is also using scraps. I think I should already have the right width here. Yeah. Look at me using up stuff that I've already cut, not having to cut it down again. I'm so proud. All right, so I am working on piece G, and after this, we'll start putting some together. And we actually get to use some more pattern paper, which I'm thrilled about. Okay, so this one, we are making a pocket. So I know that I just need to do 1/2 inch on 3 sides. Okay. Oh, it's so nice and overcast today. I'd really like to go out and do something outside, but don't let it fool you. Just because it's overcast, it's still 90-something degrees. My little one's been begging to go outside and ride her scooter night after night, and it's just too hot. We don't make it very long. She's just pouring sweat. All right, so I mitered the pocket. Fold on those score lines to the back. It's just too hot. I love the fall. We can sit outside. She can scoot around, and I can do some things in the garage. I really like to get out my weekly scrapbooks or my weekly journals and write in them when it's cool outside. How many months is that going to be? July, August, September, October, probably November before we get to cooler months like that here in the South. Anyway, so now we've got those ready to go, and now we need to be in the middle of 17. We need to get some pattern paper also ready to go, because if we put all this down before the pattern paper, you're going to see some of those flip flaps, and we do not want that. So what I am using is this green plaid looking paper. Let's see. Is that technical, plaid? It is on the back of the Santa Claus paper. It's the green plaid. All right, so we're gonna cut that down in the middle of page 17. This is 8 1/4 tall. Don't have a whole lot, I don't want to stress you out, but you don't have a whole lot of extra pattern paper, at least big pieces. So just make sure you're measuring it really well before you cut, because there's nothing like cutting a big piece of paper and then not having enough left for the rest of your project and having to piece things together, and you just want to... But just know it happens to the best of us. I have lots of pages where I have pieced different patterns together, or pieced this pattern back together and just kind of put a 1/4 inch strip over it to hide it, like a decorative strip. So no one ever notices but me, but still. Ugh. All right, so with our green plaid paper, we ink the edges. We're going to adhere piece E to this. Okay, so piece E was this large piece that has the score line right here and your tape. So I'm going to go ahead and fold on the score line back and forth. We can see that really well. We're going to put this in the upper left corner of this pattern paper. So I'm going to take the tape off, and then I'm just going to lay this green pattern paper right up to the edge. Just kind of make it right where it butts up. You have a little bit of room where the score line is so that you can still fold on it. But then it's going to be flush at the top. All right? So like I said, if we put this down in our book first, or if we don't put it down like this first, then you're going to see this little flap in your project, and I don't want that. Anybody else hold their breath when they do these? Okay, so then this is going to fold over. And this is going to fold back. So that's what you should have as of right now. All right, so now we're at the top of 18. So now we're going to glue down this green pattern paper. All right, so grab your book that you've made. Make sure you got this as the front, right, with the red dots. Open it up. So this green plaid paper, just gonna put a big clip on it so it stops flapping on me, is going to go on your front cover. You're gonna center it on all four sides. You're gonna center it top and bottom, side to side, but an easy way to do that is this brown paper here that's on your binding strip. You should be able to line that up top and bottom with that binding, and then have about 1/8 of an inch on the left side here. Just make sure you don't go over your score line so you can fold your book. Okay, easy peasy. Flip old Santa over. I finally got to get my glue. Okay, I've got my art glitter glue in this glue press, which I love. You can pick these up from May Made It. It's made by My Sweet Petunia. It really saves my hands. You barely have to press on it and get that small bead of glue to come out. So I'm gonna need to take this off so I don't glue that in place. I have been using art glitter glue now for, I don't know, quite a few years. I would say at least 8 or so years. And I have looked back on some projects that I have made and nothing has ever come apart using score tape and art glitter glue. So I say it's tried and true and definitely going to keep that. I love this already. Oh, yes, yes, yes. Let me get my big clip back on here. Okay, so now we're going to go and we're going to put our pocket on. So this is piece G. Remove the tape backing. We're going to put this flush to the bottom of the green paper and all the way to the left so that you should have a tiny gap on the right hand side, and that just helps to be able to close the book and not have so much bulk there. So you might show a little bit of the green on the right side. That doesn't bother me. It's just something you kind of have to do in construction. I lined it up on that left side, just kind of pulling it over to where I want it to land here on the right. Mine kind of did land at the end of the green. I'm so happy. Okay, position that in place, and so this is kind of where we are now. All right, so now we're going to do that pop-up mechanism. Okay, so we're in the middle of page 18. So we're going to grab this piece F. I'm gonna go ahead and fold on the score lines, kind of get that started. All 3 of these. All right. First thing you're gonna do is open up your flap here. Then on this page here, we're working on the short side. Right. So we're going to take the tape backing off the short side. We're going to line it up on this score line of your photo flap. Line it up on the score line, flush to the bottom. That's what it's going to look like. There are good pictures in the middle of page 18 if you want to see something else visual on that. Get close to the score line, align it up on the bottom. There we go. So that's what it should look like right now. So now we're going to do the right side. This is the one that tripped me up for a little bit, but it's actually very, very simple once you figure out what you want it to look like. So you're just going to fold on your score line, right? Flatten that out. So I'm going to fold this. This is what it's going to look like when it's glued down. You're going to have a tiny space between the spine and then your pop-up mechanism here. That's what it's going to look like. So now we just have to glue that down into place, which becomes very easy. So all you're going to do is once you take your tape liner off, you're just going to fold this into place and it's going to fall exactly where it needs to. Okay, so just with that tape stickiness up, I'm just going to fold the piece back over, burnish. All right, and so when you open it, this is what you should have. This is toward the back here, and then here's your little pop-up piece. It's really not that difficult at all to put together, but it looks really, really cool. That's gonna be neat. So then now you can line this up with ephemera pieces, with flowers, put you a photo here that pops up. You can do all kind of stuff with this. For now, I am going to use that paper clip, but like I said, you're going to put things in the pocket to help hold that down as we go along. Okay, so now we're going to get into some more decorating, which I love. So we're going to be using scraps of that green paper. Okay, so here's my scraps so far. I think these are the two that I need, because we need the green piece to be 8 1/4 by 5 1/4. So yeah, here's your 5 1/4 piece by 8 1/4. So that's already cut down to size. If you cut your paper like mine, and I try to show you as I go how I cut it. All right, and then this little 1 1/2 inch piece of red by 12. We're going to use, let's see how much we need. We need 1 1/2 wide, exactly, so we just need 8 1/4. Cut the strip off the top, and that will give me 1 1/2 left. And then I need it to be 8 1/4. All right, so I'm going to keep this little piece, put that up with my scraps. Now this, I put the red and white dot on the right side of the green, and then I like to go ahead and tape it together on the back. You don't have to do it that way, but I find if I have, you know, one large piece of paper that's the exact size of what I'm trying to mat, that it's much easier to center it on all 4 sides than just putting down one piece and then the second piece. It's kind of near impossible to get it right. You wind up having to trim something, which I guess it's not the end of the world, but this is much easier. I keep a roll of acid-free Scotch tape just for this purpose, really. So on the back, flip it over, line it up. I like to put one on the ends. In the middle. Make sure that's lined up well. Then we're going to dry fit it. So it's going to go, hold on. Back cover, just like so. This is what I mean too about piecing. If you cut something wrong and you need to piece it together, just make it look like you did it on purpose, or make it look like, hey, I don't have enough left to mat this piece, which I didn't. So I'm just going to make it look like part of the pattern. So once again, kind of line it up with that brown. Just burnish this into place. Okay. Just make sure you get your corners really well, because that's what's going to come up, if anything. So a couple of corners here that's not glued down well, so do that. So here, So you've got some continuity between your front and back. See, we've got like your greens and your reds here. And then it also matches up, you know, what you've got wrapped around here. Okay, so we're going to make some flaps. Let's see. I think this is where we will stop the video for today, and then we'll come back on Monday and we'll talk about the photo flaps that will go onto the back, and we'll finally get to the fun part. We'll finally get started on using a lot of pattern paper and a lot of the ephemera. And I'll tell you something we're going to go over. My mother made me a book to put my ephemera in. She sewed some little pockets and put it in there. So if you're interested to see how we made those or interested in picking those up, let me know. Let me know in the comments below, but we'll talk more about it in the next video. Thank you guys as always, and I'll see you in that next video. Bye.